This is the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, the biggest, most fun podcast in the galaxy. We're Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, and we love talking all things science fiction. This is Season 4, but our human adventure is just beginning as we gather around our computer consoles to discuss the science fiction of film, television, and literature. Join us on our quest for fun and fascination as we go where no podcast has gone before. Everyone has permission to come aboard the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, but make sure to find your seat fast because we're taking off in 3, 2, 1, hit it. This podcast is a part of the Trek Geeks Network.
Yeah, absolutely. As a former movie critic, the fact that Mary Robinette has basically taken the bones of the Thin Man movies and transmuted them into space is both delightful and extremely clever. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's been kind of fun about this year is that it is, looking at what has been nominated, and people are like, well, why these books? And I kind of have a theory this year as to why this particular set of books has got nominated, because a lot of the books are lighter than a lot of previous year nominations might have been, and some of them are funnier, some of them are cozy. Mm-hmm. I think is a word that gets used, particularly in the case of Legends and Lattes, Travis's book. And I think the reason is we just spent a whole bunch of years under lockdown and in stressful times. And so to have a bunch of books where they were like, hi, here's, for the next 300 pages, you get to escape into a world and enjoy yourself and have a laugh and have a cozy experience. People were so excited and relieved to have that when it came time to nominate books for awards, those were the books that were on top of at the top of their mind. If we hadn't just been through everything that we'd been through for the last couple of years, we might have had a completely different set of nominees. And I include my book in that as well, right? Mm-hmm. But we did have those couple of years, and I think people were looking for mm-hmm. something to get them out of their own heads. And that's why we have some of the books that we had this year.
Yeah. And I know the last few years have definitely informed what my books have turned into. I mean, the set that's out now was always intended to be kind of humorous, but the novel that I'm writing right now that comes out in a few months, it started out as something a lot darker, but I completely rewrote it to lighten it up and make it like kind of fit in that still humorous, witty-ish kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because it's after Crazy Foolish Robots and all that kind of lightness is working for me. So I kind of want to stick with that. And I like it. I don't even want the heavy, heavy dismal stuff either, just myself. I want to, I'm writing books that I would want to read.
Right. And I think it's just the moment right now. It's not going to last. I mean, everything ebbs and flows and comes and goes and stuff like that. And it's not to say that the books that have come out that have been heavier are not worth consideration. It's just every award nomination, every bestsellers list, all of that sort of stuff is always a snapshot in time. It's sort of taking the temperature of the culture at that particular moment. Right. And at this moment, here's where we are.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. So one of the other things I'm really curious about, so, yes, awards and things, but some of your books have been optioned for film or TV series, yet there isn't yet a film or TV series. Like, can you talk about, are you hoping one of those will pan out, and which one would you choose if you could choose?
I mean, it's hard to say, and not just because we're currently on, everything's on strike. Yeah. But it's also more of, after a certain point, it is just, well, what do you want to get? What do you want to get on the screen? I want any of them to get on the screen. Whichever one of them it makes it is, going to make it. So right now, the ones that I can talk about, we have Old Man's War at Netflix. Mm-hmm. We have Kaiju being set up as a TV series.
A TV series. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There are a couple others that are under option and that I can't talk about right now because they haven't been announced yet. Now there has been stuff of mine that has been, released, obviously the episodes of Love, Death, and Robots, they're all short stories as opposed to novels. And I've been absolutely delighted, one, that anybody was looking at my short fiction in the first place. And also that Blur Studios and Netflix and the individual animation studios that were doing each of those episodes have done such a terrific job with them, right? But yeah, the thing about it is, like for example, Old Man's War. Old Man's War has literally been under option for 15 years now. 15 years. And it's gone from, it was originally at Paramount, and then it was at Sci-Fi Channel, and now it's at Netflix. And, all the time people have been excited and they've been absolutely trying to get it made. And then for whatever reason or another, it hasn't gotten made. And this makes it absolutely no different than basically any other thing. It took Sandman, right? It took 30 years for Sandman to get made. It took 30 years for Dune to get made, and then it took another 30 years for it to get remade. Starship Troopers also was 30 or 40 years before it got made.
We don't talk about Star Trek.
Wait, we don't.
We don't talk about that movie. Brian.
That's another topic.
We could go on.
Yeah.
I personally love the Star Trek Starship Troopers movie, and it's weird how coincidentally there's an entirely separate novel of the same name. That's basically
a really good way to put
how
it.
I work with that one. Be that as it may, the time that it's taken is not unusual for Hollywood. They still haven't made Forever War. They still haven't made the Hyperion series. It took them 30 years to make Ender's Game. All of these sorts of things, they always take time. And in the meantime, as I say, the Old Man's War options paid for my daughter's college. So, can I complain that it's taken that long? No, I can't. Every time somebody gets optioned, they come with a bucket of cash. Some buckets are larger than other buckets. But I can't complain that they don't make them when they keep buying them to make them and not making them. And then, and then I keep making money from that. I have been fortunate, at the very least, that there are still have interest in keep trying to make them. And I would love for any of the things that I have that are currently under development to make it to the final line, because among other things, when you actually get something made, something is greenlit, something is put into production, then every single other thing that you have under option, its value goes up, right? And beyond that, there's the simple fact of the matter. Like, as much as you may or may not like Starship Troopers or the Ender's Game movie or any of that sort of stuff, the simple fact of the matter is that when those movies came out, those books sold hundreds and thousands and millions of copies.
Yeah.
When I remember one of the very first discussions I had with the people who were wanting to make Old Man's War as a movie, right? And they were talking about how they really loved it and how they, were looking forward to putting it together now. But that there were going to have to be changes made. And I was like, let's have this conversation now so we never have to have it again. I want you to make a movie that when people see it, they can say, yes, I can see why they made those changes, because a film is not a book. And they're not necessarily the changes I would have made, but I can see why they made it. And they've made a movie that gives me the same sort of feel that I got when I, read the book. I said, but if you can't do that, then make a movie that makes a truckload of cash, right? because if that happens, then what happens is the books sell 3 or 4 million copies,
right?
And I weep about the destruction of my source material in a hot tub full of cash.
Do you want to be involved if they actually were to move forward? Do you want to be involved?
Yeah, me too.
Well, the way we have it now is that, and when I first started selling things, I was generally not involved. But now we have it as a line item that I have to be usually an executive producer, right? And what that means, and people are like, ooh, executive producer. It's like that can mean anything from they want you actively engaged and involved to here's an extra big bushel of money, go away, right? And you get credit. Now, most of the people that I'm working with do want me involved, right? Because rumor has it that I know something about the work. But the thing that you do have to understand is like they will give me the script and they're like, can you give us notes on the script? And I'll give them notes on the script. And sometimes they will take those notes and sometimes they won't. As an executive producer or as anybody engaged with it at all, I get a say, but I don't get the final say.
So you wouldn't be writing the script at all then. That would go to somebody entirely different.
Generally speaking, no, we want other people to write the scripts for two reasons. The first is script writing is a very specific skill. And while thanks to Love, Death, and Robots, that is a skill that I've acquired now. For a long time, I didn't have that skill. And so it made more sense to actually have somebody else do it who actually knew how to write in that format. And the other thing is, again, when you option something for film or for television, then, the simple fact of the matter is it is an adaptation. And the writer who is the novelist is not necessarily going to make the correct decisions that the writer who is the screenwriter will make. And I will give you an example of this, which is that we had the Interdependency series in development for a television script. And the screenwriter who worked on that turned in a script that did a bunch of things that I didn't think of and I wouldn't have done. And that script was terrific. It was literally, anybody who knows me is like, when they give me a script, I'll be like, I have so many notes for you right now. And I had no notes except for a very small technical issue that could have been fixed by changing 2 words. The script was just that good. Wow. And I could not have written that script. I absolutely could not have written the script because it would not have occurred to me to do the things that she did as the screenwriter, right? It just wouldn't have occurred to me at all. And that was one of the reasons why it absolutely sells me on the idea that it's okay to have someone else other than the novelist do it. You have to have someone who is at least as invested as you are in the project. Right. And this particular screenwriter would have been the first time that she would have been the showrunner. So this was her shot. Right. So she was as invested in it as I was. And because of that, it was a terrific, terrific script, which unfortunately did not go forward, which makes me angry because it would have been amazing.
It really should have. Yeah.
Yeah, it really, really should have. But, but these are the ways that it goes. And quite honestly, like I said, it sold me on the idea that it's okay to have other people work with it because they will see things that will make it work better in that format than necessarily you will. Now, again, if they say, we want you to write the script, I'm like, okay, I will. Because again, it's more money and it's more control. But I'm not, feeling like I'm left out in the dark if I'm not, especially if as an executive director or executive producer, I get to put in my notes anyway.
So with Love, Death, and Robots and the 4 episodes that you wrote, how did that come about? How were you presented? Did they come to you and say, hey, John, we really like the short stories. We like the concept. Write the script for us, please.
Well, everything that I gets optioned goes through my manager and my agent, right? So that's basically what happened. Tim Miller, who was one of the producers with David Fincher of Love, Death, and Robots, was a fan of my writing and had read my book of short stories, which is called Miniatures, all of these very short stories, like 2,000 words or below, and was like, we would like to option these for this thing. And I was like, okay, because I literally never expected any of those stories to be optioned at all because nobody looks at my short stories. So I was like, why the hell not?
I have to now.
Yeah. And then I met with Tim Miller, who is, aside from the producer of this, is well known as the director of the first Deadpool movie. And we just hit it off. And so when they were making the first season, so I had 3 episodes in that season, none of which I wrote the script for, but the short stories I did. Philip Gillette wrote the scripts for 2 of them. And I can't remember her name, but she wrote but there was somebody else who wrote for When the Yogurt Took Over and did a really great job. And I'm really embarrassed I can't remember her name right at the moment. But so those scripts were written by them, but they kept me in the loop, and they were like, what do you think of these scripts? Here's what some of the art looks like. Here's the roughs of it. So every step of the way. So when they came to the second and third seasons, they were like, just write them, right? Okay. So we adapted the automated customer service, and then the sequel to the 3 robots are both that I wrote, and I wrote the scripts. And of course, there were lots of back and forth, and had to serve more than one master, which I don't have to do as a novelist, but you do it. And it was, a lot of it's just based on the fact that having worked with me and seen how I was engaged with the first season, they were like, we can absolutely work with you, so let's do that. And I have to say that generally speaking, and I'm not a member of WGA, so and the Love, Death, and Robots is covered by, I believe, the Animation Guild anyway. So I can talk about it right now. I can say that working with the folks, Tim Miller, Blur Studios, and Netflix, was just one of the best experiences I've had working with people in LA, because they listen. They don't always agree, but they will absolutely always listen. There's a good, healthy back and forth. They're super engaged in everything that they're doing. And they were just, there was a lot of respect, even when they were telling me no about something, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of the best case scenario, where you're like, like I said, it's very rare that I will get the final say with something, but at least in this particular case, when I was being told, no, we're going to do something different, I absolutely understood why they were doing it. And even if I disagreed at the time, by the time that the final rolled through, I was like, okay, you were right.
So let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, in yogurt, did you choose protecting Ohio because of self-preservation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I live in Ohio.
That's right. And number two, did you have a bad experience with customer service when you wrote the animated robot episode? Because it sure seemed like it just, it's one of those things like, I'm frustrated because I'm not getting customer service. And so, of course, mayhem happens because of it.
We all had frustrated, like,
no one comes away from a customer service thing going,
that was there like one specific event you went like, I'm so pissed, I'm so angry, I'm just gonna go with this.
So with the yogurt one specifically, the reason that was written was it was literally meant to be an exercise in here's a classic format for a science fiction short story, which is take a weird idea, give it a level of plausibility, see it through to the end, raise some big questions, and leave people hanging, all in 1,000 words. It's literally a 1,000-word short story. With automated customer service, the impetus from that, aside from the customer service going haywire, and that's funny, is when I go on book tour, as I'm about to go on book tour. What I usually do is, aside from the reading, which would either be from the current novel or the upcoming novel, I will frequently read something that is, just a short, funny piece, because it's always fun. And that's where the short stories happen. Like, it's literally it's a tour story. And that was just based on the fact that, anytime that you deal with customer service, please pay attention because the options have changed. They have never changed. They have never changed. That is just their way of saying, we want you to pay attention, so we're going to lie to you about the options having recently changed, right? And all of that sort of stuff. So just sort of playing off the changes with that. One of the things that I really love doing with my short stories, and if you read Miniatures, which is a collection of short stories, you'll see that, is looking at everyday sort of interactions and putting a science fictional twist on them. Mm-hmm. So with automated customer service, it really was, oh, you're being murdered. Can we, how are we going to make this, how are we going to deal with this? Now, funnily enough, there was a previous thing that I did with Mary Robinette, where we did a sort of improv thing where the concept was very similar to that. She played the person who was calling in about a 3D printer going sort of haywire, and I was the live customer service person who was kind of stoned, and that was a lot of fun. But it was all very improvisatory, whereas this one was, just something that I read up for fun.
Actually, one time, Stephen Colbert impersonated a customer service person for the Butterball turkey at Thanksgiving, and I mean,
oh yeah,
it was hilarious. It was hilarious because the advice he gave was literally causing ptomaine poisoning to happen. So I can see where it would have gone fun with a little improvisational humor on something like that.
Right. No, you don't want to actually expose anybody to liability, but it sure is fun. No.
So you mentioned the upcoming book tour. Are you actively, like, when you go on these tours and stuff, do you get a chance to write? Are you thinking about your next project? Are you just not?
I usually don't write when I'm on tour because the tour process is not conducive to it. Mm-hmm. And other people disagree. I remember one time I was on tour with Cory Doctorow, and we did three events together, and he would come down out of the hotel, and get into the car, and we'd be being driven to wherever it was going, and he'd pop up his laptop and he would start writing, and I'm like, wow, dude, if I did that, I would throw up, right? Because I'm in a car. But also I'm just generally not in that framework. That said, I have a new novel that I'm working on, and I'm going to try, as I do every time, maybe to try to do a little bit of writing when I'm on the road, but I don't beat myself up if I don't actually get it done. Because the other thing is like, here's the schedule, right? Which is you wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning so that you can be on the earliest possible flight. So if there's a connection flight mishap, you don't completely miss your next stop. You get there, you check into the hotel, you have a little bit of time to, get yourself set up. You go to the bookstore, you schmooze the booksellers, you sign, the stuff that you need to sign in advance. You do the event, you do the after signing, you go back to the hotel, you shove some food in your mouth, you go to sleep as early as possible because you have to be up at 5 a.m. the next morning, and you repeat. There's no romance to the touring life, and I don't know how musicians do it for 3 months straight. I'm doing
or longer.
I'm doing this for 2 weeks. I have 8 stops. Then I get on a plane in Cincinnati and I fly to Budapest because I am the guest of honor at the Budapest International Festival of Books this year, which was kind of wild. Their previous guest of honor was a Nobel Prize winner. So when they were like, we want you to be our guest of honor, I'm like, did somebody drop? Did somebody break a leg? No. You're very popular. You're very popular in Hungary. So I'm like, okay, nice. I will absolutely do that. But it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of, and it's a lot of tiredness. I remember when I went on my very first tour, and this was back when they still had media handlers, right? And they're like, you'll have a media handler at each of your stops. I'm like, why do I need someone to tell me when to eat? And it turns out after 3 days, I knew why, because I was just so discombobulated. They're like, okay, here's a granola bar, eat that. Here's a bottle of water. And now I'm going to take you to your signing. And and now I'm going to take you back to your hotel. I'll be here to pick you up.
Mhm.
You know, all of that sort of stuff. Nowadays, they're just, Tor knows that can take care of myself, so they're just like, get an Uber. You know.
So I have a really technical question. You've probably never been asked this before.
Oh boy.
What is your drink of beverage when you're writing? What is your choice
Ooh.
of beverage?
Ah,
Put that so eloquently.
well,
Is that
we
Coke
have
Zero?
It is Coke Zero.
That
It is
is,
indeed Coke.
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper, but I prefer Coke Zero. Sweet.
Here's the funny thing, which is that I mean, I stopped drinking sugared cereals. I stopped drinking sugared sodas a long time ago because otherwise I would just I would probably be dead of diabetic coma with the amount that I drink. But I still need caffeine, and I don't drink coffee because I think coffee tastes terrible. And the thing about Coke Zero that differentiates it from Diet Coke is the new Coke formula. Like, it's literally the new Coke formula, whereas Coke Zero is the classic Coke formula, obviously with an artificial sweetener.
Right.
And so it actually tastes like Coke is supposed to taste, unlike Diet Coke, which tastes like malted battery acid to me.
I agree 100%
yes,
with you.
yeah, that's
It's
my
like
wife's drink of choice is Coke Zero, sugar-free.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's and generally speaking, it tastes great. And so I drink ungodly amounts of it. It's honestly a surprise to me that I haven't gotten like kidney stones yet with the amount that I suck down. But but it's got just enough caffeine that I can get through whatever it is that I'm doing. Although currently I'm drinking a zero caffeine version because it's after, as we are recording it. It is after 7 p.m.
Yes.
And if I have too much caffeine too late, then I'm up all night thinking about my sins.
Yes, that's no good. That's no good. Well, so when you're on the tour, if you're not writing, are you reading or listening to anything?
Sometimes I'm reading. Often I'm on social media. I used to do the former Twitter a lot, but I'm on there a whole lot less these days. So now my social media of choice is Blue Sky, which is still in beta. And then I will also pop up on Mastodon and Threads as well, and just kind of chat to do that. My little bit of, I'm an introvert, yet I still need to socialize thing. And then I will try to sleep because especially
sleep is
I'm
good.
I'm 54 now. I need more sleep than I did when I was 44 or 34. And I used to think that I would resent the fact that I just want to nap more. But in fact, I'm angry at younger me for not taking more naps, because naps are awesome.
Yes,
sleep is good.
Yes, all the old people agree. Naps are good. But it is. They're actually really, really great. And the thing is like I always have, when I'm going and doing events and stuff like that, there are two things that people will be like. They'll be like, hey, do you want to go out and do something? I was like, no, I want to sleep, because again, I have to get up early, but also I'm just old now. Or the other thing is, they're like, oh, you're coming to town. Just so you know, if you travel like 45 minutes out of town, there's this great hot dog place. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going across the street. If I'm, I am literally gonna like eat room service if I actually make
Uber Eats.
Yeah, no,
Have
I'm
the
not gonna
45-minute hot dog come to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, or just order from, room service, that, but the point is like I said, people are like, they want to be helpful, and I really appreciate that. Like, you could go do this, or you could do this. So it's like, no, I'm not here that long. I'm literally here long enough to get to the hotel room, and then get to the event, and then get to the airport, and then I'm off. That whole thing. It's like, it's like, I'm not here that long, so enjoy me now, sort of thing. Sort of thing. It would be really super romantic, except that it's like, no, it's like, it's like, no, I'm going to my hotel room. I'm going to sleep. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great time.
It is.
No, sleep is
Adina's
good. No,
waiting to do that.
no, seriously,
Adina's waiting
sleep is the best, and you need sleep, and we need sleep. And people ask
Yeah.
me how I get so much
Yeah.
done, and it's because I sleep, so that
Yeah.
I can
No.
do a lot. And then
If you don't have enough sleep, then you get angry and surly and all this sort of stuff. And the other thing is that I am an introvert posing as an extrovert when I do these events, right? And particularly after the pandemic, and particularly after having gotten COVID, it seems to have reset my ability to extrovert meter. It is so much less than it used to be. I used to be really good. I could extrovert all night, right? And now I get to the point where I'm like, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. You all must die in a fire. Usually it times very well towards the end of the event. But the thing is that then afterwards, people are, even if I was awake, and people are like, hey, do you want to go out and do something? I was like, no, I'm done with humans. I need to go. I need to go and depressurize because tomorrow I have to see another 200 of you, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be clear. It's not like I'm like resenting having to see people, because I really genuinely do like to be on tour. I really do like meeting people who come to my events. I'm super appreciative that they show up. They want to see me, and I want to make sure that their time with me, they feel that it is time well spent. But when I am done, I am done.
Yep.
It's like no more,
100%.
Yeah.
I think
No,
that's.
Go
was
ahead,
going to say that's one of the best things about the internet in the last few years is I think a lot of people have become educated on what an outgoing introvert is, because I went through a lot of time in my life where like people assume I'm an extrovert because I'm very outgoing when I am around people, but they don't know that once I'm done with people, yes, then there is I am done with people for now. I like people, but now I'm done. I need to recharge.
And especially yourself, who's you're meeting these people for the very first. They know you from your writing. You don't know them because they're coming up to meeting you for the very first time, and they may be asking you the same question over and over again. What's your favorite novel? What's your favorite novel? What's your favorite novel? And you have to be gracious, and you have to understand that you want to give each one of these people their time. They bought your book.
Yeah.
You're going to autograph it. You're going to write something nice, maybe nice chatting or whatever. But with the end of the day, you're like, okay, I've met enough people. I don't need to meet anymore.
Right. Well, and the person who actually gave me some really good context for this is to come back around, our good friend Will Wheaton, who knows something about meeting people and signing the autographs and doing all that sort of stuff. And he said it best. He said, look, you are going to see sometimes hundreds of people in a day, right? And you won't remember them all. But that one person is there to see you, and they will remember everything about the time they spent with you. So you need to make sure that when they're spending the 30 seconds or a minute or whatever with you, that you are 100% engaged with them, because they will come away and they will absolutely remember. And it makes sense to me, because I will see a couple hundred people on tour or whatever, and they're all literally in the short-term memory buffer. It just goes out the window as soon as I'm done. But they will remember having met me, and they will remember if I was rude to them, or if I was tired, or if I was obnoxious or dismissive. Right. And so it's, it is a performance is the thing. It's not an insincere performance, because I really do want everybody who comes and sees me and gets a book signed and has that 30 seconds or a minute with me to feel like that 30 seconds to a minute were genuine, and that I was genuinely happy to be spending it with them, which again, I absolutely am. But when I'm done, I'm done.
But you don't expect them to act meeting you like you met Tom Hanks. Oh my God.
No. I live with me every day. I know that I'm no big deal, right? But it is one of those things, it is one of those things that, people have, people have read the books. People have seen me online, or they've gone to the blog, or they've seen me on social media, or whatever it is that I'm doing. They have a parasocial relationship with me where they feel like they know me, in part because I write in a very style of online in the novels that is very approachable. So there have been times where people have completely lost it having met me because, my books mean something to them, or something else that I've written on the blog means something to them. And they're nerds and they have a hard time processing, which I 100% get. I don't expect people to be as excited meeting me as they are, meeting Tom Hanks, or when I was meeting Tom Hanks. But there are a lot of people who are excited and flustered by meeting me. And the answer to that is, let them have their moment to process, because, again, for them, that's an important moment, and I don't want to step on it.
Yeah. I was excited. I don't think I was flustered, but I was excited.
When we saw each other at
Balticon first, but that was when I had to leave my son to get your autograph, because I was worried I was going to miss it, because I had to do my talk. You were doing your signing. So I let Frank get the autograph, but then I caught you after, and I still got to see or listen to your reading. But I wasn't sure that was going to all happen, because again, I was doing my own thing.
Right, exactly. Well, and the thing is that, anybody who has been fanned upon has also been a fan, right?
Yes.
The first time I got to meet some of the people whose books that I've been reading my entire life was a deeply weird moment. Like, I remember Stephen Bruce, whose Jerrig series, right, books were just ones that I absolutely loved. I remember getting to meet him for the first time and just having a conversation, like peer-to-peer conversation and stuff like that. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, it's Stephen Bruce. Oh, keep it together, dude. Keep it together. Or completely outside of the field, which is, there was a singer named Alison Moyet who was in a band that I loved when I was a kid called Yaz, they were electropop. They did like Depeche Mode and stuff like that. But some of my favorite songs are songs that she sung, and she has one of my favorite voices. And we became friends on social media, right? And she did a tour. And I made the, comment, was like, well, I know where I'm going to be on September 19th of whatever year it was. And she was like, you should absolutely come backstage and say hello. And I'm like, oh, okay. I will do that. And then we did the thing where, her manager spoke to me, and he was very, it's like, look, you're only going to get like 3 minutes. It's like, dude, I know how this works. Don't worry. I'm not going to, But it literally, I have been somebody who has, interviewed movie stars and all this sort of stuff. I don't generally outwardly like lose my mind. But Chrissy, who came with me, she was like, I have never seen you more quiet than the couple of minutes before you met Alison Moyet. Because I was just literally like, this person, music, and it was so important to me. And she was just the best. I mean, she came and she gave me a great big hug, and she was like, we have to take a selfie because my husband and daughter are huge fans and I want to make them jealous. And I'm like, I love you, Alison Moyet.
That is awesome.
We take the selfies and stuff like that. But everybody has been in that position.
Sure.
And the graciousness that you have gotten from the best of those people, you want to pay forward to the people who are having their fan moment with you.
Yeah.
And it's always special when they treat you with the respect that you are a fan and you've got a chance to meet them, and that's really, that says a lot about that individual person,
Yeah, no, they get it. And like I said, because everybody has been part of that chain. Everybody has someone that they admired. Everybody had someone that they looked up to. And you hope that, they always, that saying, never meet your idols. It's like, no, it's okay to meet them. You have to understand that they are human, right?
Yeah.
But it is, because, and the best of those people understand that you are having a moment, and they let you have that moment, and that's great when they do.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty collected. When I met Wilson Cruz earlier this year at one of the conventions. That was the only time I was shaking when I met him, and I don't know why. I really don't know why, but I was, but he was so sweet. He just held my hand.
Yeah. No, they especially the Star Trek people. They know, right?
That how crazy we are, and how like, oh my gosh, we are. But other thing is, I've met several of them, and for some reason, I don't know why, Wilson Cruz brought out the like.
Well, he's darn good looking. So what do you expect? My God, that guy.
Maybe it was just that. Maybe I don't know.
He's got muscle on top of muscle.
Oh my God. Well, it's like this past Friday they had the strike.
I just said
for
that
all for all the blah blah day for the Star Trek fans at Paramount, and we had interviews Michelle Hurd, and I ran into her, and I was wearing Big Sci-Fi T-shirt, and she came up to me and was so happy to see me, and then she's the one who gave me a big hug.
She's wonderful. We know
fantastic.
how wonderful she is.
It's just that, but the real person who she is the real person who she is. That's what I'm getting at. So when we meet these people and they act like they really are, it's really special.
Cool. Well, is there anything we haven't covered that we were going to cover tonight?
I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Oh my God. Well, I could probably go on for hours and ask you more details about the book and talk about Hera in Starter Villain. Hera's my favorite. People need to read Starter Villain, and they'll fall in love with Hera too. Hera's the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, everyone, space cadets.
I just have one last thing to say, John.
Yeah.
I've said this before, and I've said it again to other people. It's people like you that remind people like me how little talent we have.
Oh, so true. No, I'm just kidding.
This is from a man who could write music, and I can barely hum, and he knows that.
Well, I'm going to say my more serious version of that. Like, I have wanted to be a science fiction writer since I could remember. And it is, there's only a handful of authors out there that I can say truly are like, this is kind of what I'm aspiring to be. And you might be the only living one of those right now.
Wow.
I'm still a huge Asimov fan and stuff like that. But I think I really, seriously, when my dad put your first book in my hand, and I was like, this is great. This is the, and especially your standalones, like this is what I'm aspiring to. And this is what I'm thinking about when I'm working really hard on the craft and trying to be better. So thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you. That's genuinely the nicest thing I've heard all day. Thank you.
Aw, you're welcome. Okay. Well, then on that, we're gonna close the airlock on this Scalzi-rific episode of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Yes.
Cheesy.
Well, to say this has been it's gonna get cheesier. Just give me a second, okay? To say this has been a treat would be like calling a lightsaber a nifty glow stick.
Oh, God.
I mean, to be fair, it is a nifty glow stick. It absolutely is a nifty glow stick.
Okay, fair. Well, look, we want to just say thank you so much, John. Again, I said it, my favorite living sci-fi author, and the person who I'm convinced could write dialogue for a sentient piece of asparagus and make it compelling. How's that for cheesy? I've got all this cheesy stuff here, but now I think I'm getting into the serious part, So to our listeners, our cherished listeners, I do have some homework. If you were a Scalzi novice before today, I challenge you to dive into his catalog and get reading or listening, remembering that Will Wheaton is the perfect pairing with Scalzi's novels. And of course, as always, if you want to interact and chat with us, join our Facebook group or find us on Instagram or Twitter. Or you can always drop us a note at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast at gmail.com. And a cool shout out to the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. We're proud to be a part of the Trek Geeks Network. And in addition to the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, you will find other really cool and entertaining podcasts at trekgeeks.com, like the Sci-Fi Sisters. And I mention them in particular because all three of us, Trek Geeks, us, and Sci-Fi Sisters, we will be at Trek Long Island next at the very end of May, very beginning of June. So get your tickets now, kids. So until we sync our subspace channels again, treat your fellow life forms with respect and care. and may you live long and prosper till we reconvene on the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.